Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Weekly Manga Recap here on May the 10th of 2018. I am Nick here with Chris. I'm burning alive right now down in Florida, but we're going to soldier on as we talk about manga this week.
And Nick, in the spirit of the episode series we're discussing this week, I am high as shit. Nah, I'm kidding, guys. It's all good. But I should have dropped acid before doing this episode, if I really wanted to be in the spirit of things.
Okay.
It was Jimmy Hendrix, or was that Santa? It was Jimmy Hendrix who used to, like, cut his head, like, cut his forehead and then, like, wear a headband soaked in LSD, LSD, wasn't it?
I don't know if he actually did that. I know that he would play wearing a headband a lot.
I thought I heard that was a thing. But this could just be from, like, the same list of like, tidbits that, like, came with the whole, like, you eat 12 spiders in your sleep throughout your life and all those sorts of things.
Yeah, apparently there is a popular rumor about this. But did he really do this?
Snopes, tell me.
You can't get contact. Hi, blah, blah, blah. It would have been a lot of needless effort for Hendrix when he could have just taken the acid orally before going on stage.
Yeah, I was going to say, after hearing it, I was like, why wouldn't you just, like, it's not like acid just disappears. That just sticks with you for a bit.
Yeah, so, maybe, I guess it's possible. He could have been misinformed on the effectiveness of that and tried it anyway.
He's like, guys, how do I do LSD? They're like, I don't know. Like, he was talking to, like,
Hendrix.
He was talking to a bunch of wrestlers. They're like, I don't know, cutting your head open and put the drugs into that.
What do you think? What do you think, Rick? Just does it, like, right in front of the camera.
One hand blading himself, the other hand throwing money to one of his many ex-wives.
God. What a very depressing description of the man.
Then afterwards, he does an elbow drop on his jacket, and everyone loves it.
Were you a fan of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Chris? The TV show?
Yes and no. I didn't go out of my way to watch the show.
Mm-hmm.
But anytime it was on, I enjoyed it. I tried at times to, like, catch back up on the show, but when it comes to, like, syndicated comedies, I'm just never up to date with them. It would be something that if it were on Netflix, I'm sure I'd binge watch it. But doing that on cable television requires me to go through on demand, which is always just a more, like, tedious process for me. So I always loved what I watched. I always thought it was a very creative, very funny show. I liked, like, how they had a different group of characters than what you necessarily always get in, like, those sort of shows.
Yeah.
But
that was
super good, I thought.
I watched 3 seasons and part of the 4th, and then I kind of fell off on it. And now it's been canceled, and a lot of people are very sad about it. There's, like, multiple different trends on my timeline for Brooklyn Nine-Nine right now.
I was wondering, like, I just scrolled through Twitter very, very quickly, and I was like, there sure are a lot of Brooklyn Nine-Nine gifs going around today. I didn't look at trending at that point.
So there you go.
I would not be shocked if Netflix doesn't pick it, or Netflix does pick it up and just says we'll continue the series. I mean, that seems to be up, like, their MO at this point, and I'm sure they have the money to. So it feels like a super slam dunk, like, thing at this point.
I wouldn't be surprised if it gets picked up by somebody else. Yeah.
And it's being replaced by a Tim Allen sitcom. That's the worst part, says Panda Biddle. Unpopular opinion, guys. I would disagree with that. If only because you know what, I'm not going to go there. Let's just say to each their own.
Anyway, let's talk about other things that are dead, I guess.
Oh, take that, I guess.
Well, yeah, it's a manga that we took as a suggestion a couple weeks ago was the Shiori Experience. There's a longer title, but I don't know the translation of it, so I'm not going to bother going through all of it. Which is about a 26-year-old teacher who, with an unremarkable life, who all of a sudden becomes possessed by the spirit of Jimmy Hendrix, and basically someone has made a deal with the devil. That, old legend where if you make a deal with the devil at a crossroads, then you can become a gifted blues player in exchange for your soul. And someone apparently tried that, but they were the wrong age. So instead, it went to someone in that person's life who was the correct age, which was Shiori, because she's just turned 27. And following along with the tradition of all of those great musicians who died at the age of 27, in bizarre coincidence, she now has until she turns 28 to become a musical legend. And if she fails to become a musical legend, then she will die. So
it's one of those premises that when you first hear about it, you're like, okay, that's like one of my favorite things when it comes to manga, and I guess technically anything in this reality, is that sentence you could drop on people to like confuse them when you're like, oh, what are you reading? Like, oh, it's this manga about a Japanese school teacher gets possessed by the ghost of Jimmy Hendrix to become a famous musician in a year or she'll die. And you're just like, what? Like, you had to, like, that person has to pause for a moment and be like, excuse me? And that's definitely, like, this premise definitely sounds like one of those. It's oddly not as weird of a series as I was kind of expected it to be beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just the fact that the premise itself is something that we actually read something similar on, and I'm completely forgetting the name of it. It was the one about the blues singer.
Me and the Devil Blues.
Me and the Devil Blues. That was a series that was far weirder than this one in terms of like having just crazy shit all over the place. This one's pretty standard. Essentially, it's a girl who needs to chase after her dreams, and a cartoonishly over-the-top version of Jimmy Hendrix is her
This is
guy.
not.
No.
This is not Jimmy Hendrix.
Not in the
Okay.
slightest. I don't.
Literally, someone like heard about Jimi Hendrix and saw some pictures of him and was like, "Oh, he's a skinny black man who played the guitar. I know everything about him." It's like, no, you didn't.
He must be wacky and beg to play music. So what do we want to touch on first with this series? The actual characters, or do we just gotta go straight into the fact like Japan is super racist with black people, isn't it?
I guess we'll talk a little bit about kind of I guess let's just kind of go with the direction that the series heads in. Because you start off with that point, and Shiori is, this completely forgettable, literally the principal doesn't know her name. He's always saying something, similar, and then she's also like, it's Honda, it's Shiori Honda, that's my name. And he's always like, Honmaru, something along those lines. And always getting it wrong. In fact, I might have gotten it wrong right there,
Yeah, I was like, Honda, I don't know.
Shiori is the only name that I really remember. Anyway, so Shiori is just this woman who has, because her family fell into debt because her older brother tried to become a rock star, and the record label screwed him over, and they sank heavily into debt. Then his family got burned with all of this debt. They can't really, afford to, pursue anything. They can't do anything risky. And also, her dad really fucking hates music now. There are lots of here and there. It's like there's a miniature Footloose that happens multiple times. So she can't pursue anything. But eventually she realizes that because all these people around her are like, you're not, living your life. You're not pursuing what you want to do. And she realizes after, she has this strange black ghost following her around, demanding to jack into her neck so that he can not even vaguely. It's not even a veiled reference to like a sexual thing. Like he flat out says like, it's like, oh, come on, just one time, baby, just let me put the tip in so I can jack into you and then play the guitar. It's It like literally about the third time that he did, I was like, this is going to start getting, very sexual and weird eventually. And then he just started like humping stuff in order to demand that he be able to plug into her and play the guitar. It's like, okay, this is literally like his version of sex. And clearly the author does not have any idea what Jimi Hendrix was actually like. He understands the hippie part, but I don't think he understands anything else about it. Anyway, so she decides to go ahead with this because, for one thing, she doesn't really have much of a choice. She'll die in a year if she doesn't do this anyway. And she's like, hey, I remember, when I was a kid, I really wanted to do this. She remembers, that she had a band with her friends in high school and they would jam out together and they were so going all in for it. And then, her thing with her brother happened and she had to completely, discard her dream. Now, she decides to go back to, trying to do this in a very bizarre manner, which is, okay, you need to become a musical legend. What can you do? Well, you need a band. Fair enough. I'll make a club at the high school.
And you're like, can teachers do that? Were they members of the club?
Hey, it worked for School of Rock. No.
That is true.
Oh, actually, I didn't even realize that I would put on this
shirt.
It's like the most appropriate shirt that I could have been wearing for this episode.
Nick, with the synthesis and synergy.
I wasn't even thinking about it. I put this on last night.
Nick's so cool. Man, I wish I was coordinated with this episode. I mean, I did LSD before we started, but that just makes the colors spin.
And actually, you can't see him, but I also had Jimi Hendrix form a contract with me, and he's standing behind me. You just can't see him. He's actually just my neck right now.
I was gonna say he plugs in somewhere different with you.
Okay then. So, for the most part, after that, we get a long stretch of just, gradually being introduced to the kids who end up joining the light music club, which, if you are at all familiar with K-On!, means general rock and roll school club. And each, member has their own little story that's told out. Apparently, there's just all sorts of people with, dormant rock and roll talent and desires at this school that just need that push in order to join in on becoming part of the band. There's no one who's has no talent and becomes better. They're just all prepped and ready to go. But then again, you've only got a year to pull this off anyway. I guess you can't really train someone from scratch.
Yeah.
And it's so a big part of the plot is just bringing the club together, despite the fact that pretty much the entire rest of the school doesn't want this to happen. It's not all footloose, but there is a very footloose feel throughout the whole thing.
There's a lot of characters who have very strong opinions on rock and roll. And I'll admit, when they first started doing the series, I was actually kind of really into it because while I was not crazy into the portrayal of Jimi Hendrix, the one thing I thought the series did kind of get into was that feeling of old style rock and roll, that freedom that came from it, the kid in their bedroom swinging around with the guitar, just wailing their heart out, that youth that comes along with it, that's just so kind of crazy excited. And they played into that a lot early on. There's a principal. The principal at the school is no, I hate rock and roll. And through the course of the chapter, they reveal the reason he hates rock and roll is because
there was a car accident caused by a rock band.
No, he was a huge rock fan, but his heart was broken when Jimi Hendrix died, and he kind of lost his spirit for rock at that point. But they bring it back to him, and it's one of those things that's just very goofy and silly, but feels in the spirit of rock. I like rock that is very over the top and is crazy and goofy. I love the darkness, a song about I believe in a thing called love, and they're fighting giant space octopuses in it, and he screams out guitar before the guitar solo. That's rock to me, just the same as other stuff. So I love this idea of like an old tiny principal who's just like, no more rock and roll. And then it like cuts to him in like the 70s and he's got like a giant afro and he's like, rock, rock, rock.
I think that, yeah, I mean, the most that I was into this series was the very, very beginning. Because what happens is there is just this, rehearsal for this big brass band, or that is one of the 2 clubs at the school that is the most prestigious, which is led by this combination of what's the best way of describing it? I can't remember the exact word, but the kind of villainous woman. That's her true personality, but she's constantly putting on this kind of klutzy, very sexual person. Honestly, unique kind of character. I don't think I've ever seen anyone who kind of goes specifically for pretending to be this Orihime-esque character, but is actually this scheming, manipulative bitch. And the other is the soccer club, who is led by just seemingly a pretty cool guy. Anyway, so they're having this big rehearsal, and all of a sudden Shiori, who is possessed by Jimmy Hendrix at the time, just walks out with a guitar, plugs in, and starts rocking out in the middle of this performance, just steals the entire show. But then the possession snaps out. Jimi Hendrix does his possession by way of he just has this wire that he plugs into a port in Shiori's neck. And so that comes out like midway through the performance, and she's still rocking out. And she's doing all of the lead guitarist, strutting, the hopping across the stage and whiffing it up and playing it with her teeth and everything like that. And she, jumps off of the amp into the air. And this, one of the things I really liked about it is that, we've seen a fair number of, musical portrayals in manga, and it's hard to capture what music does, but that's not really the point of this series. The point of it is the feeling that it gives to the performer themselves, and that, just kind of explosive energy that they have to let out. It's not enough to just play the instrument, that they've got to put everything that they have into it. And seeing her, having all of this fun and remembering what it was like to rock out with her friends when she was a kid, seeing that joy be recaptured in her life, it's really nice. And it makes you think, it's like, oh, okay, so this is something that, she kind of always wanted, but she just kind of had to forget because life got in the way. And it's nice that she, can pursue this again. But there are big problems that I have with this series. One of them is, look, I'm not the biggest Hendrix fan in the world. I know, the 4 big Hendrix songs, Purple Haze, his version of All on the Watchtower, Voodoo Child, Foxy Lady. Those are the 4 songs that I listen to by Hendrix. They're all great songs. Yeah. But every now and then there would be this little moment that I'd be like, okay, you don't know anything about Jimi Hendrix. Why are you writing this series and pretending that you do? There are things where it's like, I talk about Purple Haze. And literally, I listened to Purple Haze again after they talked about it. I was like, that's not what this is about. Jimi Hendrix is just like, you just become one with the universe. Okay, hold on. Just because he was part of the hippie movement doesn't mean that he was just the most stereotypical hippie you could think of. There's a part where the two band members are encouraging Shiori to get back with the group so that they can do their performance, so that they can actually get the light music club going. And the first member that she's picked up plays the saxophone. Saxophone's not completely out of line with playing blues and rock and roll and stuff like that. It's one of them. It's probably the most unusual instrument that they have in the band, but whatever.
Good saxophone.
So she's great. Yeah, she plays it, and all of a sudden they're like, that's the intro to Purple Haze. And I'm like, the intro to Purple Haze is on the guitar, which is what Shiori plays. I was just like, what the fuck are you talking about?
I mean, you could do it with
you could.
Saxophone. It's true. Let me just give
There's no such part in Purple Haze at all.
let me just give you guys a little tidbit. Something I find very amusing is listening to Jimi Hendrix music while reading this manga actively detracted from the experience. I was really expecting to be something that meshed up. But when you listen to Jimi Hendrix music while you're reading it, you really nail down that this is not an accurate portrayal of his music at all.
No. I mean, Hendrix was a weird guy, but he was also he put a lot of thought into his music as well. It's not like he just lit up and was just like, just let the music flow through you, man. No, he drew from like all of his experiences in life and from a bunch of different types of media and other singers in order to create this unique sound, which is hit upon at one point, which is one of the best parts of later on in the series, where they just go into a record store, he and Shiori, and he plugs into her so that he can listen to all this new music. That is probably the most in-character thing that he does in the whole series.
A big problem I had with this series, too, honestly, is there are too many characters that just don't feel very necessary. There's, 4 different members of her family, one of whom is gone, and the rest of them, except for one, have the whole, like, music is bad or you're wasting your life kind of attitude to her. There's the one teacher you already mentioned. There's another male teacher who's kind of like the nice counterpart. There's the prep student in the brass club as well. You know, there's Jimi Hendrix himself. Then there's the saxophone playing girl, and then the drum playing guy. Like, they just keep kind of adding characters, and nobody's particularly all that interesting. I like Shiori, because there is something very satisfying about seeing somebody who's this, like, very bookish, very plain, very reserved, like, you know, has to count every last set she's kind of using person, seeing her just completely release and have this moment on stage. But everyone else just kind of felt there. There's not a whole lot of, like, interesting characters to it. And Jimi Hendrix probably would be an interesting character in this manga if he wasn't Jimi Hendrix. It's the fact that, like, as you're watching it, you're just like, what place did you get this idea this would be his personality from?
You know, I cannot imagine, like, the real Jimi Hendrix, you know, just kind of wandering around in the background going, woo!
Yeah, it really portrays him as, like, an airheaded goofball all the time. Like, you'd expect, like, the real Jimi Hendrix to be, like, lounging about, maybe, like, I guess he's a spirit, so he can't, like, you know, imbibe on anything or anything like that. But I'm like, I still just don't feel like he'd be in the background like a Team Rocket villain mashup of just characters be like, "Ooh, what's this over here? Whoa!" and all that sort of nonsense that's going on.
Oh, but he's a black guy in the manga. He's got to act goofy, you know.
The one thing I really had to note here, and this is, you know, we're 2 white guys on the internet. You can always keep that in mind. There is still a lot where you're like, does he always have to be drawn with those lips?
Yeah, I know. It's like they saw, you know, him on the album cover when he sings, and, you know, he makes the, you know, and they're like, oh, his lips just look like that all the time. No, they don't.
He's doing everything, and I feel like his lips get larger as the series goes on.
Oh, God. I think that one of the problems I had was that so many of the characters that join Shiori's band have very similar stories. Like, I like playing rock and roll, but I can't because reasons.
Yeah.
It's like, it's just like a version of that for almost all of them. The only one that's actually any different is Izuza, the saxophone player, who literally is like, she loves playing, you know, saxophone in the brass band. And then she does like one thing wrong around the bitch teacher, and she's just like, you're out, you're gone. She's like, oh, well, can I, you know, do something to make it up? No, leave. Oh.
And even that still in its own way kind of, oh, somebody that is in my life doesn't approve of me playing this kind of music, or it's not, you know, the right way for me to live my life, for me to play my music according to them or whatever. And thus, I feel, you know, suffocated because of it, or I feel, you know, oppressed because of it, or whatever. It's another variation on that that's just not as straightforward as, like, you know, my dad says I shouldn't, or whatever. And I think, honestly, it kind of hits upon one of the innate sort of problems that exists in the series, is that it's trying to be, like, this build-up sort of series to something that really maybe should have only been a movie at most. I mean, I feel like a active running manga series is a rough spot for this, just because it gets tired too quick. You know, the premise of like rock solves all problems can only work if you're either taking it to insane extremes over and over again, like, you know, incrementally crazier scenarios, or if you're doing it quickly and you're done. Like, after the third time of having some situation solved, but like, remember how great rock music is and the great nostalgia we have for it? You're like, yeah, I do too. I'm gonna go listen to some fucking great music. You know, I'm gonna go listen to
Isn't Daydream Believer a nice song?
I'm like, yeah, it is. I don't know why I'm reading a manga if I want to listen to it, though. Like, I just think that this is a series that could have worked in an extremely short format, or when it didn't have to do, like, this Blues Brother, like, let's build up a whole band of eclectic characters, because it just doesn't work for this sort of thing. Like, the characters, as you mentioned, just aren't distinct enough in why they're there. And
I think I like the two girls who joined the band at basically the same time. It's done very awkwardly, because what probably should have happened is that one should have joined them, and then they should have gone for a little bit, and then the other should have joined. But instead, one just shows up, and the rest of the plot is about getting the other one to join. It was like, oh, I guess she joined the band with no problems. Okay. There was no plot for her joining the band because their story is, you know, told together. And they have this really nice little backstory. You know, one of them is this very reserved girl who was a member of the occult club. She's very creepy, has the bangs over the eyes and stuff. And the other is this kind of tomboyish, tough punk girl, but she has a lovely singing voice. And there's this whole story of how they would, you know, play and sing together and stuff. They joined a choir club together, and the reserved girl, Shinobu, was really jealous when Meguro, who is this just innately talented singer, would be accompanied by a different piano player in the choir. So Shinobu was just like, I'm going to do everything that I can in order to get better, so that, you know, I'm the only one who gets to accompany you, because this is, you know, our dream that we want to accomplish together. And you see this montage of them doing it. And she manages to become the primary piano player for the choir. And then the old piano player pushes her down the stairs because she's jealous. And Meguro somehow takes the blame for it because she's like, she did it! And they're all like, we could ask the girl whose best friend is the accused what happened and believe her, or we can rely on the person who had motive to attack her and take only her story.
This is the only possibility that could have happened.
Which they explained, like, is, okay, Meguro had this reputation because her dad was violent, and also, when this happens, she does literally go over to the other girl and punch her in the fucking face. Which is like, okay, I like you. Honestly, I think they're really the only two characters in this. I was like, oh, I really like their story, and I kind of just wish that they were the protagonists. I'm kind of bored with Shiori by this point.
Yeah, I think...
Because, like, Jimmy's just having her dress up like Jimmy Hendrix for some fucking reason, complete with mustache. And I don't know. A series like this, I was expecting it to be goofy, but I was kind of also expecting it to have more of a sense of urgency. You know, you've got 1 year to become a rock legend. I don't think you got time to be bullshitting around at fucking high school, getting these kids who can't go on tour with you anywhere. So, I don't know. It really wore on me over time to see, like, I was like, Jimi Hendrix randomly bashing the monkeys for no real reason. Very bizarre, nonsensical explanations of songs. It's like, you know, if you're going to talk about the wonders of rock and roll and stuff, then maybe you should actually do a bit of research on this, because there is a tremendous amount of, like, history and analysis that's gone into, you know, the relationships between people and stuff. So, yeah, I think that the only thing in it that was actually accurate was that Hendrix was inspired by Bob Dylan. It's like, okay, yes, that's true. He was a huge fan of Dylan, but that's about all I can think of. That was just like, yeah, that's correct. That is true. But I don't recall Jimi Hendrix ever, you know, being obsessed with guitar and only guitar. So
it may be nice if the spirit of Jimi Hendrix possessed her, but wasn't an active, constant character in the series because of it. If it was maybe like more like a Yami Yugi kind of thing or something like that, like shows up when she needs it. Because the fact he's always around is just so distracting because the series is named after him. And it's not him whatsoever. And you're like, I wasn't best friends with Jimi Hendrix. I don't know him 100% who he was, but I know he was not this cartoonishly over the top, like, goofball. Like, it's just, it's like not what his music even is.
Yeah, exactly. That was like what you said. You know, if you listen to the music, you can tell that the person who made it is not this weird person being attacked by crows. Yeah, I do like the idea, like, you know, Shiori walks around with, like, a gold record around her neck, and then it glows and spins around when she needs to call on him, and her hair goes up into an afro to signify that she's transformed.
Oh, that'd be sweet.
Yeah, a guitar version of that song, sure. Yeah.
I mean, it's still a guitar, isn't it? Well, I guess
no, it's orchestral.
That's
no.
right, that's right.
Anyway, I can't really give this much of a recommendation. It's certainly a weird series if you're looking for something different. And maybe if you do have well, no, because if you have a deep appreciation for rock and roll, you'll probably just be annoyed like I was by all of the, this isn't Jimi Hendrix. Maybe if you hate Jimi Hendrix, you should read this.
I think, I don't know if I can say, like, don't give this any read at all, because it's a pretty short series. Like, we're not talking about something that's been running for, like, 80 years or anything like that, and it's pretty quick and easy to kind of read through what's out. But I don't know who to really recommend it for, because it's not weird enough that I'm like, you should check out, like, it's not like Air Gear, where you're like, oh, it's so crazy at stupid points, like, you have no idea what's going on or anything like that. It's not like that kind of goofy weird, but it's not, like, just enjoyable in its own right. We've read more series that have, like, referenced, like, rock music from that time in better ways, like, you know, what's the name of the series? 20th Century Boys. That was all about, like, rock of that time, essentially, was, like, a heavy influence. So, you know, you can get your influence from that if you want. It's just sort of, it's there. It's not something that I'm, like, actively don't ever read or definitely read right now. It's a very, like, middling kind of, like, if this seems interesting to you, give it a shot.
Yeah. I don't really have much to say at this point. It got to a point eventually, where it was just kind of annoying me. There are certain characters that are in the band that I do have a liking for, but it really just kind of made me feel like kind of wanting it to just kind of abandon the pseudo mystical premise and just kind of be a school life a thing about, you know, a light music club. And drop all this stuff and, you know, just kind of make Shiori just be, you know, a background character that was an actual club advisor, and have these kids with their weird and just kind of more isolated stories become the focus. So I thought that some of the characters, like, you know, like Hasunori, their drummer, I know that he's kind of bland, but I also really appreciated that he was just, you know, very upfront with who he was. The kind of bluntness that he had to him. I think of some of the characters, maybe if you, like, take Hendrix and you chop him up a little bit and spread his insane goofiness out amongst the rest of the cast, then you could just have this be, you know, just a comedic school life series that would be a lot better. All right. All right, let's talk about the regular manga then. Recap portion of Weekly Manga Recap. Why don't we? Let's start off with My Hero Academia, number 181, For Someone Else. Last time, Gentle Criminal surrendered himself to the teachers of UA, claiming that, he wasn't fighting. Definitely not. No. So the guard dog guy, we get a flashback to him contacting Ectoplasm, getting his attention, saying, hey, send some of your clones with me. I'm going to go check this out. And came across Gentle and La Brava, you know, huddled there. He surrenders. And they're like, what the hell's going on here? And he says, well, I tripped and fell. That is how I got all beaten up. And guard dog's like, I smell someone else on you. I smell someone who smells like one of our students. So clearly you have been in a fight. Come on, fess up. And Deku lands not too far away, honestly, because he makes his way back to them pretty quickly. But on his way back there, he realizes that from what Gentle had been telling him before, what his thought process was and why he was doing what he was doing. And also specifically what he was aiming to do by sending him away. As he gets back, Gentle is thinking to himself as he continues, just like, oh, I guess there was a student. Yes. Everything's fine, though. There's been no major crime or anything. She didn't do anything. She's innocent. I brainwashed her with my elastic brainwashing powers.
It's like, doesn't sound like that makes sense. He may have just elastically brainwashed me to think so. I'll never
Let's
know.
believe him.
I'm never going to know now unless I believe him.
There's a bit of an internal monologue from Gentle's perspective where he admits to himself that he was being very selfish this whole time. He had just been making excuses for his crass acts and stuff like that just to fulfill his own desires. And so he's glad that at least in this moment he can act, partially because of his fight with Deku, that he can actually do something for someone else. La Brava is not really sure what to do at this point, clearly. She's obviously in distress, but she's not really saying anything. She's just kind of screaming out in her head. It's like, oh, this sucks. I love you, Gentle. I'm sorry. So the guard dog guy turns to Deku and he's like, hey, did you fight this guy? You've got bruises and stuff, like you looking like you fought this guy. And Deku's like, oh yeah, it seemed like he was going to prank the school, so we did kind of fight a little, but everything's cool. We're good. That's about it.
Yeah,
it's a weird way of resolving everything.
It's a strange way, but there's a part of it I kind of liked because it makes this whole little arc feel very strange because it feels like it was going to be very escalated for a period of time when he's like, I'm going to prove to UA that they have flaws in their security, and he has this giant fight with Deku about like, I won't let you take away her smile and shit like that. And then, it has that big climactic end where he's basically like, he sends Deku away and he's like, I surrender myself. And then Deku comes back and is like, no, everything's fine.
But I sent you away.
He's like, everything's fine. And they're like, all right, we're starting to take him in for questioning. And it's like credits. Like, I know there'll be more to this story. I know that there's more for that. But it is very a very small way of ending what felt like it was meant to be building up to a much larger kind of conflict there. I like it because I kind of enjoy the notion of what we're going to potentially see from Gentle in the future. I feel like this is obviously a build up to Gentle appearing again in this story at some point. But it is still, it's just kind of like a strange way to end this arc. Well, not end this arc. It's not the end of the arc, but it's a strange way to end that conflict in a very oh no, everything's fine. Like, oh, I guess it was just a prank. All right, you guys go home. I'm like, there were 4 chapters of these kids fighting each other. They almost killed a man.
There's a fallen eye bar over there. So they're taking Gentle into the police station, and as Gentle leaves, he says to Deku that I too was once enrolled in a hero course. Gentle criminal is a mere shadow of a failed would-be hero. Though I am in no position to give advice, those feelings of yours, make sure to see them through. And Deku realized in this moment, oh, this guy's actually kind of got a little bit more life experience than I do. Maybe I was a little quick to judge him when I had just met him for 5 minutes before we started punching each other.
As you do.
Yeah. So Guard Dog and some Ectoplasm start taking Gentle away. I guess they're taking La Brava too. She seems to at least be, yeah, she's being escorted as well. And there's one ectoplasm clone behind, and he brings up, hey, All Might's worried about you, kid. Your performance starts in like 40 minutes. And Deku's like, oh shit, I dropped my bags back there. I gotta go finish my shopping. And Ectoplasm's like, okay, well, I'm not going to lose track of you, so let's go together.
Okay, he's just like, all right, well, peace, and just leaves. It's like, oh, I really kind of said that in the hopes that you'd be like, I guess I'll go along with you.
So we get a bit of a montage, just kind of cutting around as Deku goes to retrieve his rope, sees that it's gone, and then someone has actually picked it up and gives it to him. But while this is all going on, he realizes, that he understands now why Gentle was such a tough fight. It's because I might have turned out that way too, because we had similar feelings. His feelings concerned La Brava. Oh, his had to do with Eri. They both had this one person that they were really kind of thinking of in that moment at the very end. But I do kind of like the idea that it's like, hey, Gentle was this guy who set out with good intentions and he failed, and so this is what he resorted to. So Deku's kind of like, oh, I guess not everyone that is trying to go and do this hero thing does it work out for the best. So it's nice that he took at least some lesson from this that wasn't just, well, I guess you two pranksters are really harmless in the end. So, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know. I like this chapter a lot. I like that we're building up to this sort of thing. This just is such a strange arc. I try to think of something that's like equatable to this in another series, and I really can't, because this is such a it was an arc that felt like it was going to be like a 2-chapter 3-chapter little side thing, like the Aoyama thing, where you're like, oh, it ended on like a teaser and then boom, another one. But then it had this huge fight in the middle of it, like a big epic fight with a villain that they spent a lot of time crafting and building up to, and they had this huge showdown, and then it ends in a way that's very much like, all right, back to base. Like, this wasn't like a villain, one of the big villains, and we're going to bring them down to it. People are saying the Stain arc. No, because the Stain arc was an epic arc about trying to stop this guy. Yes, it wasn't like 30 chapters long, but it was an arc devoted to like, hey, Ida's going to go after Stain because he's obsessed with revenge. We have to stop him. Hey, we stopped him. Great job. Stain's defeated and captured. This was
there's all sorts of other stuff in there, like, Ida nearly gets a bunch of people killed. It ends with Stain protecting Deku and then falling unconscious on his feet. Like, it was dedicated to making this guy look like a horrifying, like, martyr for this cause of a corrupted sense of heroism. And it caused waves because people were inspired by him to become villains because they thought that his idea of what a hero was different. This isn't going to cause anything to happen. Nobody knows that this actually happened at all, except for Gentle, La Brava, Guard Dog, Deku, and Ectoplasm. And that one guy who saw them fighting at the construction site, but he thought it was a movie. So
he's like, that movie, I can't wait for it to come out. The thing that hits me more is just the fact that it doesn't follow a very steady narrative progression either. Like, the Stain arc did. Like, Ida wanted to get revenge. He goes after him. The other heroes realize there's something going on. They, by chance kind of intervene. They save Ida and have to fight against Stain. Stain, like, it followed like a pretty straightforward track. Whereas this one, it's like Jiro is put in charge of assembling a band. They put together a band, but a bunch of other kids are going to be put in the dance team. Deku's on that dance team, but he's okay because it means Aries going to get a smile. Then it's like up here. It's like, Gentle Criminal is going to come and invade. Deku needs to go get rope. He encounters like Gentle over there, and like you're just kind of sitting there like, it's a strange flow that this had. I get how it all came together, but it was a very odd like flow, I guess is the only word I can really describe it. It was a weird way this all kind of flowed together. Not bad. I don't want anyone to think I'm shading on the series. I just think it was a very odd experience.
I think it's one of those things where you kind of have to see the whole thing at the very end all put together. and also probably some of the after effects before you actually get the full, before you actually can conclude how it felt. And that's kind of frustrating considering that we do this show week to week and we have to just kind of react as the thing is developing. So it's not very satisfying to go, it's like, well, let's wait and see how this turned out. There were plenty of moments along the way that was like, oh, this is really, really good stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Gento, I think, has been the most interesting, like, well, maybe not the most interesting, but I think he was definitely one of the most interesting antagonists they've put into the series at this point.
Yeah, suck it, Overhaul.
Yeah. Fucking eyelash douchebag.
So, 10 o'clock arrives, curtains open up on the stage for Class 1A's performance, and Deku has arrived just in time. Everyone's gathered in the crowd, and, what's his name? Mineta? Not Mineta. Mirio. There we go. I almost just resorted to calling him by his hero name. Anyway, Mirio has got, Eri carrying her, and he's like, hey, look, Eri. She looks on stage, and Deku, who has clearly run all the way there, is waving at her, and she smiles. And honestly, like, this is one of those kind of moments where if it were, like, in a bad arc, you would get to this point and be like, okay, but that was nice.
Yeah.
But it wasn't in a bad arc, though. So instead, it's just like, oh, this is really nice now. He was fighting this whole time because he wanted to make sure that she would be able to smile. And oh, look at that. It's a cute little smile from this little girl with a tiny little horn in her head. Yeah. Meanwhile, Bakugo's like, let's play the fucking song! So, I'm guessing that we'll probably get more into the actual, like, school festival part of this arc. See kind of the fruits of labor for a little bit. But I don't know. I'm not quite as confident as you are that we're going to see Gentle again in the future, but I do definitely hope and hold out some hope that we will in the future. Okay.
Let's talk about
Boruto.
Yeah.
No, Boruto.
Oh, that's right. I forgot.
Boruto. I don't have a lot to say about this chapter. We'll talk about Food Wars pretty damn quickly. All right, it's Boruto number 23, Karma. So, Masked Dude has shown up. He's got a giant frog that he's perched on. A frog that looks like it's part Cell from Dragon Ball. I mean, look at the way its body is. Yeah. So then he they fight. Who cares? So
he uses a restriction jutsu that like paralyzes everybody, but I guess Konohamaru has like a seal on him that he can activate to negate that sort of stuff.
Right. He pulls a Zora and he's like, I have this seal carved on my body for just such an occasion. Mm-hmm. So he breaks himself free from the sealing jutsu so that he can move.
But he sucks. But he sucks. Konohamaru blows chunks and gets his shit pushed.
Oh, Konohamaru, you've come such a long way from being Naruto's sidekick who only occasionally showed up to becoming the instructor for his child, the Kakashi of the new series.
He just gets clowned. Like, he used the Rasengan. Turns out Masked Dude can also use one. And then, like, he's countered, and he's like, this fight's gonna be a tough one. Dude's like, I put some explosive snails on you. Like, what? Boom. He's done.
It's an explosive frog, Chris.
That's right.
Because, see, he uses frogs in combat, and he uses the Rasengan. He's using all of the things that the Toad Sage Jiraiya would use in combat. So, is there a connection there? Who cares? Somehow the frog causes the trance of true flames to erupt. The flames of purgatory that nothing, not gale nor deluge, can extinguish. So it's basically like Amaterasu, the Sharingan technique, but not black flames. Instead, white flames? I don't know. He doesn't say what color they are, but they're not black. Unextinguishable flames. Meanwhile, everyone is still sealed because Konohamaru was like, I'll handle this instead of freeing my team that is just behind me. So no one can help him. Oh, but Naruto reaches out, and the weird little diamond mark thing on his palm spreads out and casts markings along his arm, and he goes Bzorch and stops the paralysis. And Mizuki realized, not Mizuki, is it his name? What's his fuck? It's not Mizuki. It's Mitsuchi. Mitsuki. Yes, Mitsuki. He's like, he somehow absorbed the sealing jutsu. And Boruto goes, blah! And absorbs the fire, too. And Konohama's like, I'm fine now. And he falls unconscious. So Masked Guy says, what a surprise to set eyes on the karma here. And I was like, shut up. And Boruto's getting marks all along his body because we didn't have enough seals and jutsus and tailed beast possessions yet in this series, so there's another marking that appears on your arm and then spreads across more of your body now. And Boruto has it, but it's not a curse seal like Sasuke had, it's karma. Okay, so Boruto, having expended the karma, just goes and falls over after expending his energy. Sarada rushes over to him. Masked Guy is like, this was the first time he used the power. So he's like, I've got this cloak for one reason only. And spins around so that it whirls behind him. It makes the sound whirl. And he says, I shall withdraw for the moment. Think of it as a reward for showing me something interesting.
This is like the lamest villain move in existence. Like, if you're going to have a villain pull this shit, you have to be sure that they are fucking amazing and interesting as a villain. Because there's nothing more of a blue ball kind of move for a villain to do than to have completely and utterly defeated the heroes. And then as they stand over top of them, he's like, and now I leave for you to get stronger and to one day defeat me, perhaps. You're just like, why? Because you entertained me. What do you mean, entertained you? Do you have some kind of, like, thing where you're
I'm giving you 4 stars on Yelp.
I mean, isn't your villain group, who we've already seen to be pretty quick to, like, eliminate members who aren't fitting the exact doctrine that they've set up? Like, doesn't this kind of go against what you've kind of established? He's like, no, shut up. Boom, and he's just leaves. You're like,
I could kill you now and therefore eliminate a future threat, but you have shown me something interesting.
Yeah, he's really proud about this cloak. I don't... Oh, there's one last thing. Is like, Sarada tries to stab him.
It's like, I'm gonna stop you with the most dangerous technique known to ninjas and Naruto ever. A sharp kunai.
Some pointed metal. Ah! He's like, did you not see the all-encompassing fire? I just, let's see what happens.
So Mitsuki is like, hey, Sarada, this is a bad idea. If you provoke him, he will kill us, and we can't possibly protect Konohamaru and Boruto if we do this. So Masked Guy's like, how wise of you! A good decision, child of Orochimaru. It's like, good that he recognizes that, but then again, dude has white skin and stretchy arms. Who the fuck else could he be? So they eventually recover and kind of help each other to leave and from the battlefield and I guess start walking back home. I don't know exactly where they're actually headed at this point. Oh, they're not headed anywhere. They're just walking for a while on the first page, and then eventually Konohamaru is like, we should head back to the village. Maybe you should determine a direction before you just start walking, asshole. It's not like there was like, it's not like they had to beat a hasty retreat or anything. The dude left. They weren't in danger anymore. So the arc's still not over, though. They're still going to be on this goddamn mission. There have been like 4 parts to this mission at this point. It feels like we've been on this mission for fucking ever. I know it hasn't been like too much in terms of like chapter length, but in terms of the span of time that we've been covering this mission that they've been on, because this is a monthly series, they've been at this for like close to a year at this point. So Mitsuki wanders off for a little bit. And he's like, look, the remains of a puppet like the ones we fought at the airship. Remember that, Chris? Remember when they fought those puppet things that they had to use the absorption gauntlets in order to combat? For fucking ever ago?
I don't, actually.
Because the first part of this mission was they went to the Ninja Tools, a science academy thing, and Boruto was like, I hate Ninja Tools. Oh, wait. No, I don't. This lightsaber's awesome. Then they went on the train, and they met Ao. Then they found the airship, and they encountered the robo-puppet things. Then they went in the cave, and they found Konohamaru and the guy who died.
I vaguely remember some of these things.
Ao fought them. They escaped from Ao because dude sacrificed himself in the cave so that they could get away. Boruto was like, we should use ninja tools. They used ninja tools to defeat Ao. Then Mask Dude showed up, and now we're here. This has been going on too long.
I will note, for one small correction, the meeting with Ao took place before they got to the Scientific Academy.
You're right. Right.
But everything else is painfully accurate.
Boruto still hated Katasuke and Ninja Tools. You're right.
Yeah, so I don't remember this puppet shit at all. I like you saying it and they kept them talking about it, making me like vaguely I kind of recall this, but I've kind of lost sight of to what everything that's happening is at this point. Like I feel like the mission was to protect the scientist dude, but I'm not sure to do what. Like it's not like the Zabuza arc where it was like protect the bridge builder so that he could finish building the bridge. Like, I'm trying to remember, like, what is it they're trying to accomplish?
They were originally just going to go to the facility where they were developing scientific ninja tools. It was just going to be a very easy escort mission, after which they tested some stuff, and then they're going to head back. But they got a distress signal, and they were like, hey, you guys are the closest ones in the vicinity where we last got this last signal from Konohamaru. And so they're like, we're going to go save him then. So it was a decision they made in the middle of their other much easier mission. So anyway, the ninja puppet robots that they discover here are really, really broken up. Not like sad, but as in like their heads are missing. Mitsuki is like, hey, this thing is cold, so it's been a long time since it was wrecked. And everyone was like, this is way long away from the airship, so what's going on here? Boruto looks over a hill. He sees a dude with a bad haircut lying on the ground, surrounded by more ninja robot puppet corpses. And they're like, let's go and check him out. He's passed out from injuries. And Boruto hops down next to him. He's like, hey, hang on there. He's like, he's got a diamond on his palm, like the mark that I have on my palm. Dun, dun, dun. So that's Boruto. It took much longer to actually recap that than I thought it would, because we basically ended up recapping the entire arc. Whatever, I don't care. I'm just waiting for something like to actually happen in terms of like character development again or something.
Yeah, I kind of like the fight up. I kind of like just Konohamaru getting the shit pushed in, but it's really just one of those things. It's like I can't get that excited about it. It's there.
I have to actually go refill my water. Do you want us to start getting stoned?
Well, we have to do Food Wars.
You're right. I'll do Food Wars, and then you can start us getting stoned. Why not? So, Food Wars, Shokugeki no Soma, Chapter 261. There's a fly buzzing around me, and I hate it. Rebel Angel! Last time, Erina had one last secret up her sleeve in order to make her dish true gourmet. She uncaps the little side dish thingy that she had sitting next to her, and Azami Miya was like, I don't care! I don't care! I don't care! I don't care! This is a travesty of the dish cobbled together. It's all bullshit. So, fuck you. Fuck you. No. Refuse to say it's good. I can't see the slightest hint of your usual calm and elegant grace. I can barely stand to look at you in such a state. Perspiration. Desperation. That's what that says. The text was small.
That'd be great. He's just like, look at you.
You're all
sweating like a monster.
Gross. Like some commoner. Desperation, urgency, excessive effort. All of those passions are unnecessary in cooking. It must have been so hard for you, thanks to that thoughtless boy's recklessness. You were forced to improvise an unplanned recipe. If that sort of thing continues, all the stress and pain will eat you alive, just like I'm not going to eat this dish. Bug. So Erin is like, fucking eat it! She pours out the cup that she's got.
Wish that was her actual scene. Just fucking eat it, dick!
Enough talk! Sure, eat it! She just starts shoving it in his mouth.
Like he has his whole...
It tastes good, doesn't it?
His whole big villain speech. She's like, just fucking eat it!
Oh my god, why did I ever listen to you? You're so lame, Dad! So she dumps out a bunch of golden cubes. Oh my gosh, it's just like, as Hisaka points out, the morphing furikake rice, where there were the ready-to-melt chicken breast things that would just kind of glop into it and completely transform it. So she dips it, she tosses it over her dish, and the chicken's already savoring up a robust aroma is growing even richer and stronger. And everyone's like, ha! And so they start cutting into it, and it's like, oh my god, it's so wonderful! And Azami's like, fine, I'll eat it. He's like, ah! So there are multiple fan service bits in this sequence. First is that the gloppy chicken basically starts tentacle raping Courage and Ume. Starts tentacle raping them, basically. And they're like, it's so good! And Une is like, Eiichi Tsukasa and Rindo Kobayashi's meal carried us to a paradise of haute cuisine. And just when we thought we had settled comfortably into our new Eden, a divine messenger appears, one that has learned playful trickery, a rebel angel come to steal us away to a new land of unknown delights. And just like way back in Chapter 2, where Angel Somas appeared in order to molest Erina, now black-winged Angel Erinas appear to carry them away from the ants who were carrying them previously. I do like how the ant zombies are just kind of like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Ah, jeez, man, fuck, dude.
Also, they're naked now. What the fuck's up with that?
I just want to note, I love how in this arc, essentially, we've just gotten it that Erina now is the protagonist. She's done everything Soma's done. And it's like, oh, so this is what the series would be like if Erina was just the protagonist at this point. And I'm kind of into it. Like, I don't know, I kind of really dig the way this all came together. Whereas she's like, oh, I'm just going to do all Soma's stuff. I'm going to do all of his catchphrases.
But I'm going to make it work.
I'm going to do all of his gimmicks. I'm going to literally reference the first time the two of us had, like, a cooking thing together. And, yeah, it's going to make perfect 100% sense because I'm now your rebel punk daughter, essentially.
I guess it all makes sense, though, when you consider that these were all things that about Soma that she was rejecting in the past, and now she has embraced and incorporated them together with her own style. So,
yeah, no, absolutely.
Erina says that she is determined because cooking requires freedom, and to protect that freedom, I will spare no effort and shrink from no challenge. And she declares her dish to be called Le Plat Véritable, delinquent daughter style. And honestly, I think that the part of this that I actually really like is that, you know, she was signified as being like a flock of dark-winged angels doing all this mischief and stuff. But there's also a brief image of a bird cage with the door open, and there's just a single feather floating down. It's like, she's free now. So, aw, that's nice. So, Azami goes on a rant. He basically spits on the quick little speech that Erina just made because, you know, freedom and determination. The pain those things cause will erode a chef's heart, sap their strength, and sooner or later utterly ruin them. And he thinks to himself, just as it happened years ago, it was those very things that destroyed him. And we basically just get this very short kind of sum up and kind of punching home. It's like, this is why Azami did this. in case you missed that really long Saiba flashback from earlier, remembering what Joichiro did back when they were at Totsuki together, him always kind of bustling around, and Azami would be like, "But you were perfect in the last dish." Like, yeah, but I gotta test this. I was like, "But that dish was perfect. Why do you even bother?" No, I gotta try it out. I want to tweak it to see if I can make it even better than it was before. I was like, does not compute. And Azami concluded from all of that is like, I let him continue to walk that path. The wasteland eventually destroyed him. So I created True Gourmet, an ideal world where chefs can stay healthy and vibrant. No one need suffer. Any chef can be saved. Ignore the ignorant plebeians. Discard the third-rate cooks. That rabble delights in passion and determination and a bevy over the things that will ruin a chef. And my grand revolution will rid us of them. I cannot accept this dish. I won't accept it. It is contaminated. A dish this full of pain and suffering is impure garbage. I do like this whole thing. It's this kind of thing that I was actually kind of looking for at certain points in the Shiori experience. That actual justification for the reasoning of why you just won't let the kids have their fucking rock and roll club. If you literally believe like no good will come of this, you can't just be like, you got to have, the principle, the whole thing where it's like rock and roll killed this man that I admire because he just got too wild, and you have to then crank it up. And you can't just have, well, it's because people are dicks. That's why. People are assholes, and that's why they can't allow people to have artistic freedom. That's it. No, he has this very understandable reasoning, and it's not just that he is an asshole. He is an asshole, but he actually thinks he's doing the right thing, and that makes him more interesting as a character. So there you go.
But Nick, Thanos is sympathetic because he loves his
He's
daughter.
not sympathetic. He's complex. Oh, God. So a sound occurs. It goes flam, which could mean anything. But no one really knows what caused it. There was like, what the hell was that noise? And eventually it keeps happening again and again, and people are going, ah! And Azami is looking over at stuff. He has this shocked look on his face. He seems to have realized what's happening. And meanwhile, Arena says, what did you think of the taste? So I can only... I'm not going to assume this, because with that kind of a thing, you would think like, oh, maybe a character has revealed themselves or something. I am guessing that instead what is happening is that Azami's Nakiri influence people to take off their clothes is just extending into the audience, and hundreds of teenagers are suddenly just in their underwear right now. Like, that's the only thing that I can assume is happening.
That's 100% what's happened. I like the fact that they ended it on this so that nobody has to sit here guessing that it's going to happen. Because I know a couple people, like myself included, were like, well, the way it, like, tops off is because we've seen a couple people by him in the general area lose their clothes. Obviously, the way you escalate that to the next level is the entire arena loses their clothes. So I like that this one ends in the way just like, all right, everyone get that guess out of the way. You'll see it next week. You can get tons of like half-naked schoolgirls and schoolboys. You'll get yours, and then we're going to finish this up.
You get to find out what kind of underwear everyone wears next week. It's cool. Yeah. Huh, boxers or briefs? Well, now we know.
Oh, none. Huh, that's weird. I didn't know Going Commando was back in style.
Just a single leaf in place. All right, now it's time to get stoned, why don't we?
It's time to get stoned!
Gonna go get stoned on water. Be right back.
Do that, unless there's THC in your water. Is there? That's be a question for another day. So, last time on Dr. Stone, Chrome, Magma, and Senku had traveled into the caves to go get themselves some minerals that they need to finish up their cell phone device. And Magma saved them, or helped to save Senku on the promise of like, hey, you keep showing me these things. And Senku explained like, hey, the strong need the brainy, and the brainy need the strong, sort of thing. So Senku talks about how they managed to avoid the worst case scenario, which was not death, but rather to have clung next to Magma to conserve body heat. And the very thought of that itself sends Magma like it sends his spirit out of his body as he vomits. So I guess neither one of them really wanted to be near one another at all. They find this giant deposit of minerals, and they're very excited because they get their hands on this treasure. And he's like, here we go. Do it right here. You'll have to do it, Magma, because you're the strong one. He's like, look at you idiots, you big dub-dubs. You got me all the way here when no one could see me and handed me a killer tool and let your guards down. I'm gonna kill you now. And then he, of course, just hits the thing. He's like, well, that was the plan. And they talk about something that I actually kind of was trying to get at last week, but I talked myself out of it being a possibility. I thought the whole thing...
You were right. You were right. Yes.
Yeah, it turns out that when Magma saw Senku falling, he actually was trying to push him out of the way as opposed to just killing him there. So I guess he had made his decision before we ever got to this point. And he was just devoted now to seeing what kind of happened there. Chrome's like, I'm sorry I treated you that way. Feel free to sock me when it's payback. And he's like, it doesn't really make a difference right now because it really doesn't change the fact I was going to try to kill you guys at some point. But they're fine now. They're all friends, and they got tungsten. They have everything there. And Chrome has this great moment where he's like, hey, guys, I know tungsten's a swell treasure and all, but I think that the bond of friendship that us three pals formed down in this dungeon is the greatest treasure of them all. And, he looks over, and Senku and Magma are just like, oh, dude, stop. Why are you ruining this?
They essentially basically just go gay.
They basically do. But I just love it that they shit all over him. And even he's like, look, I after I said it, I realized it wasn't as cool in my mind. Whereas in reality, I thought it was in my mind. Shut up! But I just love, the two, he actually does the sincere, guys, the two treasures the friends have made along the way, isn't it?
No, it's not. It's the tungsten.
But they managed to get a metric crap ton of different minerals. They go through a whole, manganese. I'm not good at these. Manganese and chalcophlorite and sapphirite.
I'm so glad that I actually had you cover this chapter because I would be just as bad at these.
But you now have the ignorance to play I knew all these names. Chris is a big stupid idiot.
Obviously, I knew how to say kathasapakopoporite.
I'm like,
the key, Chris, is just to say it with confidence.
I'm like, tungsten, tungsten. And they have Magma carry them all back. But the moment they start getting close, Magma blindfolds Senku. And when he gets there, Gin is doing something last you return. And Senku starts to immediately start to guess. He's like, well, it makes sense. You guys would realize that if you give me up to Tsukasa and swear off science, that the village would be safe. It's all pretty rational. And everyone else is like, no, we got you a birthday present, dude.
What?
And they did. They got Senku a telescope included inside a whole astronomical observatory. And it's this very sweet moment. It's sort of like a quasi 2-page spread of Senku staring out into the cosmos of space with this telescope in front of him. And it's a very sweet moment. They even close off to the whole note that Senku said to himself when he was a kid, I'm going to go to space, and a telescope that his dad got him, and the image of his dad going into space. It's a very sweet sort of moment there. And Gen explains that they worked off of their limited understanding of how telescopes work. They're not super positive how it is, and they're like, we kind of just threw 2 lenses in a tube, but everyone came to help, so that's the kind of good part of it. And of course Senku's just like, this is great, we could use this for science to help us win the battle of war at the hand.
We can spy on our enemies with this. Well, we kind of thought you would stargaze with it, but okay.
Yeah, I was like, I guess this still works. He's happy. Good job, us. But he stops. He's like, I never thought I'd tell people about my birthday, though. How'd you figure out it was today? And you go back to that thing. He's like, oh, well, just think back to how many days you lived. That was an off-brand kind of comment he made at some point. And Senku actually gave a full answer. And he's like, oh, you baby put the question back there. But still, calculating reverse wouldn't be possible without also knowing how long I was petrified. And Gin says, oh, you mean you don't recall? how you wrote down the day you broke out of the stone. And we cut over to the day Senku emerged from the stone and he carved into the wall the date that he came out, because we all know he was counting every second that he was trapped in the stone.
Like you do.
As possible. And Gen found that and was awestruck by it because it was a fantastic thing to see. And he always believed that there was somebody, you know, with this kind of prowess to them, and he was going to find them. So that's basically the end of the chapter. It ends on another, like, gay joke where they're just like, he's like, you know, I'm a big fan of yours, and I'm sure it's more important than a pro-con list. The whole village feels the same way. And he's like, all right, well, I'm a little grossed out for here. And he's like, yep, I'm going to be sick. I'm like, all right. Strange way to end that, like, poignant moment, but fair enough.
I like this, thing for a couple of reasons. First off, it makes you realize that, Gen, in addition to just being their deception expert, is actually really smart in his own right. He's not a scientific mega genius like Senku. In fact, he has a pretty, average to above average understanding of, the scientific processes that Senku exploits in general. But memorizing all those details that Senku shared and using them to extrapolate what his birthday would be would take no small amount of, skill. So
it also feels very fitting when you consider that's a very common tactic in kind of cold reading people, is to just like ask what seems like pretty basic questions, but it's that way to get a read on somebody.
Mm-hmm. But I also like the note of, hey, since before I ever met you, knowing that someone had done this made me realize that you were a really interesting and great person. I've been a fan of yours ever since then. And it actually kind of goes a long way to explaining how basically everyone in the village came around on Senku. It's that he's this bizarre, unique person with these bizarre skills that in their own way are a very powerful sort of charisma. That's the real reason why Magma decided to help out, is because it's not just the words that Senku said, it's the fact that he can actually accomplish these insane things. And why the village is now in support of him is because he keeps on putting his money where his mouth is and walking the walk, basically. So I really appreciate that. So
yeah, super good chapter.
All right. Then, Chris,
let's talk about We Never Learn of It.
I'll give you a little bit of a break.
I want to do it.
No. I'm just going to cover the popularity poll at the beginning.
Okay.
So you don't have to talk all the way through it. It's We Never Learn. And before we talk about question 61, we got to talk about the results of the character popularity polls. So I'm not sure which of these surprises me more, but Kirisu is insanely popular, apparently. She won the Japanese fan poll, but coming in second place and coming in first in the English fan poll and swapping places with Kirisu is Fumino.
Yeah, that's a little surprising.
Okay. Uruka was third in Japanese and fourth in English because Asumi is more popular in English among English readers, it seems, than in Japan.
Something very interesting I didn't realize. Yuega's sister is more popular than he is.
In Japan, yes. So
has she done anything outside of 2 chapters?
No, she's done nothing. I think that it was probably a very specific type of audience member was answering this poll in Japan, and that probably has a lot to do with why Kirisu won it, honestly, because she has been put in more compromising positions than all of the other girls, because it's not as skeezy to do it with her. So.
Sorry, I just recognized that in the English version, 12th place was the dolphin from Rapey Beach.
Good job, dolphin.
He's just like, I do what I do. Like, you get a Weinsteiny the dolphin.
There were a bunch of weird ones in the English poll, actually, I should point out. So apparently in Japan, like, people actually remembered a lot of weird characters, like, you know, the other members of Iruka's swim club, Kirisu's sister is on there. Fucking Yuiga's mother is on there. Like, both of Yuiga's friends made the top 20. Both Rizu and Asumi's dads made it. I mean, then you go over to the English results, and it's the same as the Japanese in terms of, okay, there's the 5 girls at the start. They're just, you know, switched around a little bit because Asumi's more popular among English speakers, it seems. Then you got Yuiga. Then you got Kirisu's little sister. Then you got Seikijo. And you got Yuiga's siblings, just as a whole entry. Rizu's dad, which, okay. Chicken Egg Head. I don't even remember where that's from. Then you got Susui Sensei, the author of it. Then Y-Sun from Chiba Prefecture. This wasn't Japan that did this. This was English speakers deciding that they were going to continue the running gag of Y-San, the fucking Marika superfan from Nisekoi.
Oh, and a single udon noodle.
And a single udon noodle!
Like, were there multiple votes for several udon noodles, but there was a far bigger conglomerate for just the single udon noodle? Like, that was the one whose campaign really started to take off?
There must have been, like, some Reddit threads organized for some of these or some shit. Like, chicken egghead. I don't even remember what that's a reference to. So...
I don't remember. It feels like it was a doodle somewhere.
Anyway, character popularity results were weird everywhere for this series. There you go.
So let's move on then to question 61. Wherefore might they fathom the aspirations of the immediate X?
Which I don't think grammatically makes sense.
No, I don't know
because wherefore means why.
And only is used in, like, Shakespeare shit. I've never heard someone use wherefore in, like, a legit setting. Mayhaps. So the entire premise of this chapter is that there's going to be a practice interview. You know, a very important thing that Japanese, you know, high schoolers have to deal with is they have to do exams to get into the college of their choice. So they have to do these entrance exam sort of interviews. And that's sort of been referenced a couple times. So it's a very tense thing to have to deal with. But they find out that Kirisu is going to be their test person. I guess whoever was going to do it is called out. So she's subbing in, and she's going to be their interviewer. So everyone's like, I guess this will be fine. So let's do it. So Gata goes first, and she asks, like, why do you want to attend this university? And she basically tries to explain, like, oh, well,
games!
Yeah, she screams games at first. But she says, I'm not, good at reading the subtleties of the human heart, so I want to study psychology to overcome that weakness. And she's like, oh, okay, that's cool. You want to come to our university? That's very commendable. Or you want to have a personal weakness. Very commendable. Then she has, like, the evil eyes come in, because she's like, why does it need to be our university? Why not another one? So long as the psychology department is good and isn't one university the same as the next. And she basically just talks her down into, like, just being deflated and giving up off of what seems like it shouldn't be a hard question. Like, I presume that she has a college in mind. So why is the thing of, like, why our college specifically was the one to be like, oh, I give up?
I think it's more the manner that she's asking the question than anything. She starts bombarding her with a bunch of stuff, and that some of it she might not have thought of to this point, or at the very least thought of in these specifics.
Yeah, I guess the impression is supposed to be that Kirisu just has such an intimidating personality in this kind of way. So
yeah.
She says,
it's like a job interview. Yeah. It's like you might know the answer to something, but not be expecting to have to answer in a specific way. So when it comes up, you're like, how do I put this into words? So
I guess it makes sense. They're also teenagers who are notoriously dumb. The other side of this then is that Fumino goes in then, and basically the same thing happens, just in kind of an inverse scenario. Like, Fumino explains why she wants to become an astronomer. She wants to get into that program. But then basically Kirisu's just like, oh, well, if you're so good at all these other things, how do you think you're going to leverage that into your chosen field of astronomy? Which I feel like actually is like a really good question to get.
Yeah.
And Fumino has absolutely no answer for it. And she gets like the thing that comes in where she's like, well, with my determination and motivation, she's like, how exactly is your determination and motivation going to actually help you overcome this? And she's like, fuck. And they're both very deflated by it. Then Yuiga goes,
I don't understand how this happens. Is Yuiga assume he was right all along, Chris? He is a horn dog. Like, that's
apparently. So
like, I thought that the twist at some point, because, well, I'll just let you get into it.
So he comes in at first, and first she's really strict on him because, you know, he's supposed to be getting like the school's VIP recommendation. So like, you need to, you know, carry yourself better. You're carrying the reputation of the school. So don't slouch, make sure you're sitting up straight, you know, lift your shoulders and your chin. And, you know, she says, like, depending on the interview, you maybe have already failed at this point because you came in and you started slouching and everything like that. And he's like, oh, man, she's so intense. I can't let her overwhelm me. I get it, Nick. You watch School of Rock. Whatever.
I'm really hot!
She says, okay, well, if I just imagine her in her usual tracksuit, I won't feel scared. Kind of that, like, thing of, like, if I imagine somebody in their underwear, then I can talk in front of them. I never got that. I feel like I'd be so much more nervous if everyone was in their underwear than, like, if they were all in, like, a clown shirt or something. I don't know.
In this case, I think it makes perfect sense.
Oh, yes. Because this makes sense.
He has always known that, you know, her very prim and proper nature falls apart when she's at home, and she's this complete slob. So, like, if I just imagine her like that, she won't be so intimidating. Yeah.
Yes. I just mean the notion of, like, oh, when you're at a public speaking thing and a bunch of, like, your coworkers, your peers, imagine them all in their underwear. I was like, that wouldn't help me. Why are you all half naked? Put on clothes. I'm worried now.
I will say that no one has ever given me that specific tip whenever I'm going to do a public, you know, speech thing. No one has ever said that I should do that. So
I assume it's not even a real thing. I feel like
I don't think it is.
I feel like that's just something from television. So he tries to imagine her in her tracksuit, but instead he imagines her in her school swimsuit. And I'll be honest, I mean, it kind of makes sense because there have been various situations throughout Yuega's times with Kirisu that she's wound up in a different outfit, and the school swimsuit was one of them. She had to basically put on a school swimsuit when he had to help her escape from the beach. So it makes sense that he, like, gets the wires crossed and does that. But I believe we're supposed to have the same thing that Yuega is right now, where we're not able to fucking pick a word Kirisu's saying, because I couldn't tell you what she's saying at this point. She's just growing him more, and he just has, like, shitty half answers to get through them all. And he keeps trying to be like, all right, tracksuit. Oh, maid costume. All right, this time, tracksuit. Oh, shit, sexy schoolgirl. All right, this time I got it for sure. Tracksuit. Why is she in a Chinese schoolgirl, like a Chinese dress? I don't understand it.
He established, like, I've never even seen her like this. And the thing about it was I was expecting eventually, like, is she, like, actually wearing one of these or something like that? Is that what the twist is going to be? Because she's staying in that particular one for a very long time. And then it turns out, no, it's just all in his head for some reason. And it's like, I'm with Yuiga at this point, because, like, you have literally never seen her in that outfit before. Why are you imagining that?
It's because Yuiga just revealed he's got a really big fucking Chun-Li kink going on right here. So
I guess that's it. Yes.
Yeah, he's all about that, and it's happening right now. Basically, it ends with him getting rejected because he's not good at labeling what makes himself good. And specifically, you know, she comes like, don't you have any strengths worth sharing? And he's like, honestly, I don't think I do have any strengths worth sharing, so I'm sorry, and I'll come back and try again. She stops him, and she's like, hey, you
I do like his line. I do like his line before that, where, you know, he's very distracted. So she's like, "Tell me about your strengths." And he's like, "I'm really good at sewing, cooking, and being poor."
Poor. But she brings it back and she says, your ability to own up to your shortcomings, that's an extremely important thing, that people need to grow in, and you have that ability. And you have this ability to clearly assess weaknesses in yourself and others, to design study materials and challenges based on those shortfalls and assess their efficiency. As a result, several students are now progressing, albeit slowly, after their teachers had given up on them. Isn't that your strength? And then he imagines her as a nun, not a sexy nun, which I think is very nice.
Oh, thankfully, yeah.
Yeah, it was just as a very thank you, nun, for being nice to me. And then he slams the door because she's like, the fact that I had to tell you that proves that you don't fucking know what you're doing yet. So he's like, thanks, I'll keep it in mind. And then as she slams the door, she's like, I hate asking that questions because even adults don't know their own strengths. Now, normally, this would be where the chapter would end with that one panel joke thing at the end, which they kind of seem to do right there, where they're like, those two seem to be really studying today. But then we get a little bit more, and it's Yuiga saying, aside from my father, that's the first time someone said that to me, thinking to Kirisu, listing off one of his strengths. And we also get this image of Yuiga crying as a little boy holding what I assume is a picture of his dad. It's not entirely easy to tell. Maybe it's a lunchbox. Maybe it's a clipboard. I don't fucking know. But we get this insight into Yuiga, and we maybe are starting to get the hints that might put Yuiga into I don't want to read too much into it. And it says oh, somebody's saying it's a bad grade. All right, well, whatever. I don't want to read into it and be like, this is Yuiga developing feelings for Kirisu, but it definitely seems to be sort of a insightful and spectful moment for him that I feel is meant to dig somewhat into that relationship. If he mentions that nobody has really complimented him in this way since his dad when he was still alive, it feels like it's a very significant thing for him to have in that relationship with Kirisu.
A potential development in their character relationship. Yes. All right. Okay, with that, let's move on then to The Promised Neverland. Chapter 85. What do I... That's the title. So, oh no, Oliver. Oliver's gonna die, Chris. He was so brave.
Can I note my annoyance when even the chapter cover was an image of Lucas and Oliver together? Oh no, not these two, which have shared such powerful bonds throughout the years together. They're like father and son, Nick. You can't do that.
Lucas looks like he's far more into his multiple layers of clothing than he's into, caring for the kid at this point. So we're in 3 layers there. Oh. So, Bayon's dead, but he managed to stick his claws from his somehow cut off arm into Oliver's stomach, and everyone's like, oh no, we must operate on him. Giselle is basically okay. She's still obviously injured, but she is, alive, and Nigel gives the good news to her. And they're like, all right, Nigel, when necessity arises, do as I told you earlier. I'm counting on you. Make sure you come back alive. And Nigel realizes we're kind of fucked right now because our plans relied on us actually being able to take on the 3 groups and then all of us together working to attack Luvis. But right now, Jillian and Oliver are incapacitated. Zach's probably incapacitated. Pepe can't move his right arm. And also, all those people we sent after Noose and Numa aren't back yet. So hopefully they're not dead. Because if they join up with Luvis, then we're all screwed. And Lucas is left to think of himself, thinking it's like, God, if only I could use both my arms. If only these legs would move as they did before. Everyone, don't die. Cut back to Noose has basically destroyed all of the kids that were attacking him. Just torn into them with his bare hand, it seems like, and is now clutching one of them.
Yeah, I was going to say, Nick, don't fucking bother trying to learn his name.
But, in fairness, the one that has been left unscathed and panicking and fearing for her life is Violet. The only one of these kids that we really knew anything about before all this planning stuff happened. So I was like, okay, I know which one this is. I know a little bit about her character, at least. And we get a bit of a flashback to, Noose's freak out where he just started wrecking everyone, threw a spear really, really long way and hurt one of the kids and just kind of bashed their heads together and stuff.
It's worth noting that although all the kids look pretty fucked up, none of them have been like dismembered or outright like 100% that character's dead. Some look like they definitely could have been killed, but this would be a pretty big deal at this point because thus far everyone else who looked like they were going to get fucked up at this thing has survived.
Right. It seems as though probably everyone's going to live through this. That's the impression that I've gotten from the fact that Bayon didn't immediately kill anyone. Mm-hmm. So, but everyone is looking pretty bad, and Violet's trying to kind of just figure out what the hell is going on. And she realizes that Noose is just talking to himself occasionally, like just going like, "Yeah, I know, Numa," and so she's thinking, is it possible that he somehow absorbed her when he ate her? Or is he just going crazy? Well, he did get stronger, seemingly, after eating her, so... Anyway, bad problems, because she is hiding, and he knows that she's hiding, and he threatens to just kill everyone if she doesn't come out of hiding at this point. She tries to figure out what she's going to do, and then all of a sudden, a hand lands on her shoulder. She thinks that it's Emma, but then when she turns, she realizes, it's me!
Back, bitches.
Did you miss me?
Guess who's back? Back again. Hashtag race back.
Tell a friend. If you have any, you'll lose her.
Yeah, I don't need friends because I'm cool. Hashtag Ray, baby memories. I'm back.
The Ogi's just like, I've had to listen to this.
He's like,
for hours.
4 days. He's been doing this song for 4 days.
But look, old man, it was totally worth it. I had to rehearse for my big return.
She's like, I don't know who you are. Are you the hashtag right? It's like, God damn it was all a waste.
You uneducated plebes. You have to pay attention to the trending section of your Twitter, you idiot. What is Twitter?
He's like, oh, you poor unfortunate fool, not even knowing how to get the proper hashtags going on in your life.
Oh, man. Ray's there, and so is the old man, and seemingly they're going to help take charge in finishing off the last of the hunters before they take on Luvis, which I'm really, really glad, because now I can actually care what's going to happen for the first time in weeks.
Yeah, we've hit on it so many times, it's not really worth reiterating, but it's going to be really nice to have another one of the core cast around, so there's an innate... And, like, the old geezer, I care about him, because we've had time with him, and it's not just immediately the first second he's in the, like, line of danger, he's, you know, or the spotlight, he's in danger. So these are two characters I care about, so you can do cool things with them. If the end of a chapter ends with Ray getting stabbed in the chest, I'm going to be far more invested if it fucking happened to Hendrix or whoever it happened to last week. I don't remember his name. No one does.
So that's Promised Neverland. I'm looking forward to next week.
All right, let's move on to 7 Deadly Sins, Chapter 265, Rampaging Love, which is going to be a pretty quick chapter to recap because this is mostly just action and things like that. So we get some flashbacks to when Esterosa was out as like kind of a child back in a previous life when Elizabeth and his brother were kind of doing all their things. And he kind of hints, says like, oh, I've always loved Elizabeth, even, you know, back then. And he's always been jealous of his big brother because of it. And he's like, one day I'll be like you. And, you know, he specifically has a moment where he, you know, spied in on the two of them hugging. And he was thinking, I always wanted to become my big brother. So this chapter starts with him basically be like, I am Melodious. And I guess what we get that is he's not actually Melodious as last time. He's just bonkers, bananas, crazy. And
absolutely.
He's just making himself out to be like he is.
He's wanted to become his brother for thousands of years, and now he's absorbed a lot of dark magic. Wonder if he could be crazy.
Yeah. So he's basically broken at this point, as Dorere basically puts it, and he's just like, Elizabeth, 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 and
I'm coming, Elizabeth.
And a couple of the Holy Knights try to get in the way, but basically nothing's going to work. A whole bunch of people try to stop him from getting closer to Elizabeth, and none of it works. You know, Diane interferes, King interferes, the two other members of the fucking 4 archangels who no one gives a fuck about also interfere. And I kind of like what they do.
It's okay. We'll get cut in half.
They like fly in and cut him across the torso, and he just spins his torso, slashes him, and then like lands, and then like a spinning top or something like that. Like the top parts of him and bottom parts are fine, but his middle torso has to like spin around to readjust essentially. And he's like, hey, Elizabeth, it's so noisy. Why don't we go someplace quieter? And Diane's trying to attack from behind. Elizabeth's like, no, I'll be fine. Because she sees all the damage that's been happening. She sees how other people who aren't as strong as her could have their lives taken from this. So she's like, I'll go. I'll be fine. Just protect Dorere. And the chapter ends with Esterosa flying off with Elizabeth in tow.
Yep, that's about it.
I mean, Esterosa's completely bonkers. I'll be curious to see what happens from here. I think this has to come to a conclusion sometime soon. I don't know if I'm that interested in seeing Esterosa be bonkers for like 17 more chapters and he just keeps showing up. I feel like this is like a good time to kind of put him out of his misery. But we shall see.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to stick around for a whole lot longer. I think that this is going to resolve with his death relatively soon. I don't think it's going to be between this chapter and the previous chapter. He is going to stick around a bit longer than I was initially expecting him to, because I thought it was like, oh, okay, well, eventually we'll get to a point where someone is going to come in and kill him at the end of all of these fights. But there is a little bit more in terms of his character to be resolved before we get to that, and I think that he's going to be at least a couple more chapters. So, let's go over to Black Clover, which is also not going to take very long.
What are you talking about, Nick? So much happens this week.
Page 155, We Won't Lose to You. One thing to note, Tabata didn't get to finish this chapter. It's very obvious. It's actually a lot more intrusive than it was the last time that this happened very recently.
This is several times now within the past couple months this happened, so I hope everything's going all right with him.
Yeah. But not a whole lot happens in this chapter anyway, so you don't really need to dwell on the art problems. Yuno has the transformed elf ears and stuff, but he still remembers himself completely. People who are in the other elf bodies are like, hey, you are our ally. Come join us. And Yuno's like, fuck you. I can tell that there's an elf possessing me, but I am a magic knight of the Clover Kingdom. I am Yuno, nobody else. Well, all right. It's not good for him to be around humans, so we're going to kill the two behind you and make sure that you relinquish that body so that our companion can actually possess you properly. He's like, no, you guys leave the bodies that you're possessing.
I want to note that apparently, as this is still happening, they just haven't let Mimosa down for being crucified. Like, she's still strapped up on that cross, because that's a comment where she's like, what's going on? And wouldn't you guys let me down? Like, they're just having this fucking shonen rival argument while poor Mimosa's still fucking hanging from a cross right next to them.
I mean, he cuts her down before they get into the confrontation, at least.
He does, but there's a good period before that where he's still just, like, back and forthy with Yuno.
So Yuno's like, I'll stop the master. You rest. And Asta's like, no. And so the two elves are like, we can use super refined magic with these new modern techniques. Bah! A castle with drills and flowers. And Asta and you are like, one-winged angel forms. And they charge and they break apart the castle and go straight for the possessed people. That's it. That's the chapter. There's a lot of 2-page spreads and action. and not very much plot happening.
There's a couple weird points, too, in the chapter. Like, the Magic Knights are like, we're going to take you down. So Yuna's like, don't worry, I don't know how to drive them out, but I'll stop them. You rest, Asta. And then Asta has, like, a Joker moment where it's just like, like, I'd let you do that, jerk. And it's like, what was that about? You could have just been like, I'd let you do that. Why did you have, like, a moment of, like, pure hysteria? Like,
slept in 3 days.
I don't get what's going on with these characters anymore. They spend this whole thing introducing this giant super tank that's just, I don't understand what the point of it was.
It's a giant wall with drills.
Why was it like, all of our years of magic have combined together for this? A wall with spikes on it that shall move. I'm like, what are the giant flowers up there for then? Do they do anything? Why'd you waste mana on creating them?
They're the propellers!
I thought it would shoot magic or something, but it's just like, it drives forward and would impale you! Unless you, like, get stuck in between some of the spikes, which is very possible. This is a very large tank, and there's lots of space without spikes on it.
But then if you have a pollen allergy, the giant flowers will be hell on your respiratory system.
Oh, it'll make things miserable. I want to like Black Clover, Nick. I've said several times that I'm like, look, I don't want to poop on it because I realize Black Clover is not a series for me. But there's some points where I'm like, maybe it is. Maybe it is a series for me, and I just haven't been giving it a fair shot. And then something like this happens. I'm like, I just don't get it. What was the point of this chapter? They beat up on two of the dudes who you'd assume would have been somewhat interesting to see in this villain group. Did they kill the Wizard King just so Yuno and Asta can fucking solo run the rest of the Midnight Sun in this dungeon? They just boss rush their way through fucking everybody else.
Well, Mario has been taken out, so we gotta take care of this ourselves. Oh, boy.
Alright, let's talk about One Piece.
One Piece! There's actually a lot to talk about One Piece.
This is how those post-arc chapters go.
Yeah. Chapter 903, Fifth Emperor. After all, what's-his-face, the bird journalist guy, had explained at the end of the previous chapter that he thought that Luffy was one of the leading candidates to become the next emperor of the next king of the pirates, and now we're getting stuff on the fucking what is it, Yonkos or whatever?
Yonko or Yonkus, the emperors.
Yonko, the emperors of the sea. Yes,
we're fucking English speakers. We're gonna use the goddamn English terms.
So we begin on the Thousand Sunny, where Chopper and Luffy are begging Sanji not to throw away the Germa armlet thing that would supply armor. Apparently, when Niji was helping them to escape, he slipped it onto their person. So Luffy's like, don't throw that away, Sanji. If you use it to transform into your raid suit, you might be able to shoot laser beams.
I fucking love how simple Luffy is on these things. He's so excited, not for the power. He's like, but you could shoot lasers. And like, even Sanji's like, I think we only need one person on the crew who has lasers and shit.
So he basically just wants to throw it away, and they're like guarding it to prevent him from doing so.
I love this sort of thing, though, because this is obviously going to come back. At some point down the line, Sanji's going to have to use this suit.
Will Pikachu use the Thunderstone, Chris?
But this is more interesting because this one is like a seed placed in here that Sanji's probably not going to use for like another 150 fucking chapters from now, if even that. Like, who knows when Sanji's actually going to actively put on this raid suit, but it's going to be fucking awesome when he does, because this, this tease was put out there. Rather than 300 chapters from now, it suddenly just appears, and we're like, oh, I guess that could have happened back then, and we're just meant to, assume that it did.
I sincerely hope that Sanji never uses it.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I hope that he is able to stick to his own guns and do things in his own terms. Meanwhile, Nami decides to just call out Zeus, and And he's like, oh, I love being inside of that. I think that she does it because... Oh, she does that because Sanji is like, I don't need fucking science in order to do stuff. And Nami's like, hey, well, my...
Boruto shows up. Here, man!
Well, so Nami says, well, you know, my baton is a fusion of atmospheric science and Usopp's craftsmanship, so what's the problem with that? And Zeus pops out of her baton. He's like, I love being in there! It's like, and Sanji's like, hey, what are you doing? No! Get out of here! I was Nami's servant first! And Zeus is like, but I get to live in a baton that never leaves contact with her body. He's got you there.
I love Brooke, who's like, Sanji, you're fighting a cloud of evaporated water.
I fucking love that line. And meanwhile, Nami's like, I have a servant now. I wonder how the hell that's going to play out, though. Because, like, won't eventually be, like, just die if Big Mom takes the soul back or is defeated?
I think she has to, like, be around for that to happen.
Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, up on the lookout post, Carrot gets the mail, and she's like, oh, bounty posters. And Sanji's bounty has gone up to 330 million, which the reason that he actually cares is like, hey, wait a minute. How much is that Moss Heads? Meaning Zoro. They're like, and Brooke's like, oh, it's 320 million, I guess. Yes!
I love it because it's from afar, and he's so excited the ship literally leaves the exam. He's like, yes! In your face! Fuck you! 10 million higher! Suck it! Suck it! Everyone else is just like, you're fucking pathetic.
I sincerely hope that by the time that they arrive in Wano, Zoro's bounty has gone up like 15
million.
10 million and one, or something like that, just up to be immediately higher, so he'll be mad again. But Sanji is actually upset because his name is now listed as Vinsmoke Sanji instead of Black Leg Sanji. Meanwhile, Luffy is really upset because he's like, my bounty went down. Look, it's down to 150 million instead of 500 million. Like, geez, what the hell happened? And he's like, did I do something wrong? And they're like, well, no, that would make it go higher, Luffy. And we cut away. And I like how Nami is the one who's just like, it's just a number, guys. Like, no, this has to do with our reputation as pirates. Come on.
It's an allegory for our penis size, too. That's why I'm very excited. Mine is, like, impractically smaller than Zoro's. Or bigger than Zoro's now.
Yes! 1 more millimeter longer.
Still technically longer. Suck it. I'm a bigger man than you.
We cut around because just to kind of reestablish, like, hey, remember there's all those people who are going to the Reverie, the meeting between all the royal leaders. And, Shiro Hoshi's like, I have to go to the Reverie, otherwise Sir Luffy will call me Wimpy Hoshi again. And everyone's like, ha, 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 Shiro Hoshi, you're not a character. We cut over to Vivi and Arlen Park and people getting the news and just kind of like, we don't really get to get a good idea of people's reactions, just kind of see brief glimpses of them. For example, Bartolomeo is like, that's my captain, because everyone realizes that Luffy's bounty is actually higher. There's a twist at the end.
There's one I want to actually point out, and that's Crocodile, who we have not seen at all since the time skip happened. And the last time we really saw him, he was imprisoned and impelled down, helped them in the Marineford battle. We weren't really sure what happened. I guess we actually did see him at some point in between. I think somebody has said we have seen him at some point. But I guess this kind of goes to show he is free in the world. He's not.
He seems like he's doing pretty well for himself.
He does not seem like
he's building.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like he's back to being a prisoner or anything else like that. So I'll be curious to see when Crocodile shows back up into the story at some point.
That's one of the returns that I'm really looking forward to. I also think that it's interesting that we see Aki Inu's reaction.
Yes. We get some pretty interesting things about that, too.
Yeah. Recap says, like, there's the strength to defeat her officers worth 800 billion and 1 billion berries. The result of this incident was clear to all. Straw Hat Luffy was victorious. It was the arrival of the 5th Emperor of the Sea. Ooh.
I mean, this makes sense. This is a pretty big deal. I mean, Luffy has an entire armada now at this point, even if they don't sail together with him. You know, he went toe-to-toe with one of the Emperors of the Sea, or one of the Emperors, and survived. He didn't beat her, but he did succeed in getting in, stealing back his crewmate, and escaping with everyone's lives except for Pedro, who wasn't a member of their crew. I mean, it's a pretty big victory for everybody. So it was a pretty big deal, and it makes sense that they're like, all right, especially since like 7 warlords is an actual position thing within the government. The 4 like emperors just seem to be like a thing that's put out there. Like, it's not like they band together and they get together at a meeting point. They're like, boys, we have a new opening at the table. Like, it's just what the government, it seems like, calls them. So, boom, 4 emperors. Hey, it's 5th emperor now.
Yeah. Who was it that replaced Whitebeard? Did someone replace Whitebeard?
Blackbeard.
Oh, of course. Right. Duh. So there you go. So we see, let's see here. As ships are gathering for the reverie, there is people in a submarine. Have we seen a submarine? Well, no, we've seen the ones that Frankie made, obviously. But I think this is the first one we've really seen other than that.
Yeah, I think like one of the first real, like, just casual submarines.
So it's just this random group of pirates who have spotted Princess Viola's ship. She is sent, of course, as the representative, going along with, oh God, what's her dad's name? Kairos?
No, that was the Gladiator.
Yeah, him. He's there.
He's not the king, though, is he? No, it's...
He's not the king, but he's Viola's dad.
Yeah. Who's the king? Oh, Riku's the king. Riku's the king. That's it. I was trying to remember the king's name.
Yeah. So he spots Viola on the deck of one of the ships, and he's like, that'd be a great hostage to take ransom. So once we take her prisoner, right, Princess Kumane? And there's a princess sitting next to him, just like, let me go, and all that kind of stuff. So they're planning to sink the ship and then kidnap her with an indefensible torpedo attack. And they shoot a torpedo under the water. All of a sudden, a swimming figure appears, shoots off after the torpedo, grabs it, and hefts it up and causes it to burst harmlessly on the surface nearby. So they immediately prepare to counterattack. And the figure that diverted the torpedo pops out. And it's Kobe! Now, Navy Captain Kobe, who has turned into a ridiculous badass because he can shoot through the water like a torpedo, has extremely potent observation hockey because he can sense people under the goddamn water. Helmeppo seems to be doing pretty well for himself because he's now a lieutenant commander and he leads the efforts to, take the submarine and overthrow all the pirates and everything like that, free the princess that they had taken prisoner. But he was like, Jesus Christ, your observation hockey is really, really good. Kairos greets Kobe on the deck of their ship, and he's like, you're the one who saved all the civilian lives in the Rocky Port incident. He's like, no, I'm no hero. Guy's like, yeah. Why is this kid not taking credit for diverting that torpedo like a badass? But Kobe also happens to see the newspaper, see the story about Luffy, puts his glasses on, and has a very OG Kobe kind of reaction to it. It's like, he's so cool.
I love Kobe and Helmeppo. Helmeppo may be one of my favorite minor characters in One Piece, like one of my absolute favorites. I don't know why. I just love that character so much. Of like the most annoying, worthless character in the series at that point. It's like, oh, but through hard work and dedication, he's now mildly better. Like, he's just like kind of cool now, and he wears like the Geordie LaFour visor thing for some reason, and it's like, fuck yeah.
We also cut over to Kaido, who is reacting to this news. He's like, what the hell is he doing in that old hag's place? Then we see Blackbeard reacting to it, and he's like, you're not ready for that yet, Straw Hat. And from a distance, we see Big Mom react. It's like, the winner? When did I lose? It's a good point. I don't think they ever even really fought each other. They just kind of faced off briefly.
They didn't, but it was a complete victory for the Straw Hats. They stole back Sanji. They took her pornograph copy. They succeeded in doing all that.
And of course, the last that we see among the other emperors is Shanks. It says, "Looks like we'll be meeting soon, Luffy." And then, after Luffy has thrown his whole fit about everything, Brook's like, "Luffy, did you count the digits correctly? Look, 100,000, 1 million, 10 million. Your bounty isn't 150 million. It's 1.5 billion." And everyone's like, "What?"
Da 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 da. All our hopes and dreams, so on and so forth.
So, this is the highest bounty that we've seen in One Piece so far. It's very high.
It was a very high bounty.
You think that they're going to have a target on their backs maybe a little bit now?
Well, it's tough to say. They're now considered one of the emperors, which means they have to be treated with the same kind of gravitas as the other emperors. Like, if you're going to put them in the same thing, I mean, it's sort of a reason why they don't just go after, Shanks or stuff like that, because their crews are too powerful and dangerous. I imagine they're not going to be, actively hunted every moment by the Navy, but there's going to be a big confrontation at some point.
Mm-hmm. So, big development here. Really like this chapter. Getting to see some characters that we haven't seen in a long time. Yeah. And also just fun. Also, just some fun stuff happens with the Straw Hats at the beginning. So
yeah, it's super cool. It's a ton of foreshadowing. It's everything that just kind of kept building up, and we're seeing a lot of crazy changes happening. I love how One Piece has this world that they could just continuously build higher. Luffy being one of the 4 emperors, or 5 emperors now, is crazy huge. So I'm super stoked about that. I think it's going to be really awesome to see that going forward, and I'm excited for the future.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess then we should name our favorites for this week. Favorite series and MVP.
I'm going to give my favorite chapter of the week to One Piece. I love this kind of chapter for One Piece where they just go around the world and kind of show everything that's happening. And, we're potentially about to get the Reverie too, so we're going to see some really crazy stuff happen there as well, I imagine. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, same for me. I like this chapter from beginning to end, and there's a lot to enjoy from it.
My character of the week, I'm going to give to Erina, because I really like this as sort of a full evolution of her character. I love the delinquent daughter line. She has such a cool look during that scene. I just love that she's taken everything from someone, but it feels very fitting. It's just a cool thing all around for her.
Yeah. And I'm going to give it to Gen in Dr. Stone. I really like the gesture that he made. It's a weird combination of sweet, but also revealing about the way that he thinks about stuff. Kind of a weirdly cool moment for him. All right, let's wrap things up then. Thank everyone for joining us here for the live recording of Weekly Manga Recap, which we do on smashcast.tv/RoloT and twitch.tv/RoloT. You can follow us on Twitter for our schedule on when we're going to start recording the show. You can follow the official podcast Twitter account at WMR Podcast. And your hosts are at RoloT and at Nick F. Time. Also, be sure to check out our past episodes of weeklymangarecap.popping.com YouTube channel and on iTunes. And be sure to leave a comment and rating so that you can help us beat the Woodworking Podcast and become kings of the hobby section. If you want to send us any feedback, ask us questions for our Q&A episodes, or suggest future manga for us to read, you can send all that stuff via email to weeklymangarecap@yahoo.com. And we want to give a special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters. Your support allows us to create all sorts of fun bonus content for you guys to enjoy. Special thanks at last to Steve Meyer, Title Card Artist, and to Infamous Planet. And do we have a series that we're going to announce that we're going to work on next, Chris?
Yes, we do. So we talked about some interesting stuff this week. We had One Piece, and then we had Erina being a delinquent. But one thing I really like is that we got to discuss the Shiori experience. And I feel it's only fair to then follow that up with another experience. A gold experience, you should say. As we take a look at part 5 of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Golden Wind as we continue our JoJo's Bizarre Pokemon Adventure.
Okay.
His stand is called Gold Experience.
Oh, okay.
Like, there's the whole thing that made sense to nobody else.
But all right, JoJo time again.
All right, bye.